Good evening, folks, and welcome to the Horror Corner. Good evening, folks, and welcome to the Horror Corner. I'm your host, Sean Patrick Urshan, and this week we are doing another round of March Badness, which was created by Derek's Horror Corner. This is the 2021 edition, all slasher movies. And this is going to be the Freddy bracket of the tournament, representing, of course, Freddy Krueger from the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise. And with that being said, our first round of the evening is A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3, Dream Warriors, which is so beloved by fans. I'd say most fans consider this the best in the franchise. Taking on Wolf Creek 2, which is definitely a really good sequel, a great return for Mick Taylor, played so well by John Jarrett. The only problem I had with this one was that the CGI kangaroos, what was up with that? But other than that, it had some awesome gore, awesome kills, and John Jarrett is just amazing. So who's going to win that matchup? Definitely going to be A Nightmare on Elm Street 3 Dream Warriors, for sure. As much as I like Wolf Creek 2, I mean, this is just a classic sequel. You had Wes Craven returning to do the screenplay. You had Heather Langenkamp returning from the original, John Saxon from the original. And I love the whole concept of the Dream Warriors taking on Freddy in the dream world. Next up we have Scream 3, which has never really been one of my favorites in the franchise. I felt like it went too far in the comedy direction. But it was still pretty solid overall. You had most of the cast returning from the first two films, and, you know, Neve Campbell still kills it once again. It's still got some nice horror elements to it. Taking on Sleepaway Camp 2, Unhappy Campers. You had Felissa Rose being replaced by Pamela Springsteen in this one. And I think Pamela Springsteen did a great job. She made the role her own. She was definitely a much more bubbly, over-the-top, and I love the fact that she's out to punish all the bad campers, people that do things that she does not approve of, like fornicating and doing drugs and bad behavior. So who's going to win that round? It's definitely going to be Sleepaway Camp 2. I have so much fun with this movie. I think this movie is an absolute blast. I mean, if you want a good time in a slasher movie, look no further than Unhappy Campers. Next up is going to be the Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake from 2003, which was definitely a really solid film, and one of the better remakes of recent memory, taking on The Prowler, which I feel is an underrated slasher film, directed by Joseph Zito, who also helmed Friday the 13th, The Final Chapter. Some awesome kills in this movie with some amazing gore effects by the legendary Tom Savini. I feel like this movie gets a lot of crap. I mean, I don't understand why people don't enjoy it that much. I guess some people consider it slow. I don't know. I just love it. To me, it's a classic slasher through and through. I know a lot of people love the Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake, and a lot of people even like it better than the original. Not me personally, but I'm actually going to pick The Prowler, and probably an upset victory in that round. The Prowler, because I love The Prowler. One of my favorite slasher movies from the 80s. Next up, we're going with an absolute classic, Black Christmas, the original from 1974. Talk about an influential slasher. I mean, without this, we probably would not have Halloween. taking on Friday the 13th, the original from 1980, which is a film that I personally hold in very high regard. I love the original film. I think it's got amazing atmosphere. You got the amazing score from Henry Manfredini. You got the awesome twist ending. And I just love how they introduced the whole lore of Jason Voorhees. Man, that is a tough one, then. Especially for me. Maybe for a lot of people it wouldn't be that tough, because a lot of people rank the original Friday the 13th pretty low whenever they rank the Friday the 13th franchise. But not me. Friday the 13th, the original, wins this round. Yes. Next up, we have Friday the 13th Part 2. Another absolutely awesome film in the franchise. And to me, it's easily the best sequel in the franchise. I love Friday the 13th Part 2. And it's taking on House on Sorority Row, which is a pretty underrated slasher film. It's definitely a solid slasher film from the 80s. You know, following the old sorority girls concept, you know. But for me, it's going to be a blowout here. It's going to be Friday the 13th Part 2 easily. I mean, this movie is amazing. It's got amazing action. It's still just as scary as the original. And you got one of the best final girls of all time, Ginny, played so well by Amy Steele. Got awesome kills. The movie's amazing. Amazing final act as well. Next up, it's going to be Bride of Chucky. Chucky gets lucky. Bride of Chucky is a really fun slasher for sure. Yeah, to me it's just like all the others. Very fun, silly, over the top, and crazy. And this one's probably takes it even further with the craziness and introducing Jennifer Tilly's character and Tiffany, the new doll. Taking on New Nightmare, Wes Craven's New Nightmare. So we saw Wes Craven returning to the franchise to direct this time around. And this one definitely has a major meta feel to it. It's like a movie within a movie, and you got Wes Craven playing himself, you got Robert Englund playing himself, and Heather Langenkamp returning to the franchise playing herself. And it's kind of an interesting take, and you've got a much darker Freddy in this one too, which I definitely appreciate. So, who's going to win that round? I'll be honest, I'm not a huge fan of A New Nightmare, but I think A New Nightmare is going to win by creativity alone. I love the concept of it. It definitely could have been executed better, and I do have some issues with the pacing. But yeah, based on creativity alone, New Nightmare wins it. Next up, we have Halloween from 2018, which to me was a great return to form for the franchise. Bringing back that classic style of Michael Myers, like from the first couple movies. I think James Jude Courtney was fantastic as Michael. And you had Jamie Lee Curtis coming back to the franchise. I thought she did a fantastic job. One of the best performances of her career. You had some great kills, some great gore, and a great supporting cast. And Halloween 2018 is taking on Pieces. An absolute classic slasher film from the 80s, 1983. This movie is so much fun. It's got crazy over-the-top kills with crazy over-the-top blood and gore. And it's hilarious at time too, with the campy acting. It's so cheesy, but you get a good time out of it. You get a few laughs out of it for sure. Yeah, but everyone should definitely check out Pieces. But you know me being a Halloween guy, I'm going to pick Halloween 2018. Definitely enjoyed this film. Like I said, they got the two most important things right in Michael Myers and Laurie Strode, and gets the win this round. And next up, it's going to be a hugely underrated, criminally underrated film on Psycho 2. amazing sequel, just awesome. Like I said, highly underrated. The suspense is unbelievable. I mean, it's so edge of your seat. You can't take your eyes off the screen. Taking on Prom Night. The classic slasher starring Jamie Lee Curtis once again. Yeah, she did a lot of horror films in the early 80s, and this is no exception. You had Leslie Nielsen in there. I have a great time with it, and I love the eerie opening with the girl falling out the window, or, you know, getting pushed out the window, really. But, yeah, really enjoy this film. I think it's just a great slasher through and through, you know. But I'm going to have to say Psycho 2 for sure. I mean, just a fantastic movie. I mean, you might think they were crazy making a sequel to the legendary Psycho from back in 1960, 25 years later, but it made perfect sense because Norman Bates was in jail all that time, you know. And I love how they, it's always, you know, you always keep you guessing whether or not Norman is actually committing these crimes or if someone's messing with him, you know. So, next round is going to be Elm Street 3 Dream Warriors taking on Sleepaway Camp 2 Unhappy Campers. Like I said, I love Sleepaway Camp 2. I think it's so much fun. But yeah, Elm Street 3 is definitely going to win that one. It's an absolute classic and one of the best horror sequels ever. Next up is going to be a good one. The Prowler from 1981 going up against Friday the 13th from 1980. Oof. Yeah, I'm going to have to go Friday the 13th from 1980 winning that round. I think Friday the 13th is a classic. Next up, we're going to have Friday the 13th Part 2 from 1981 taking on Wes Craven's New Nightmare. Now, for me, that's an absolute blowout. Friday the 13th Part 2 is going to easily win that because I think it's a phenomenal sequel. Versus a film in New Nightmare that I have issues with. You know, every time I try and watch it, I end up falling asleep because it's very slow-paced. It takes a long time to get going. Even though I love the cast, they do a great job with the acting, but Friday the 13th just keeps you going and going, you know, it's action-packed, you know, great kills, it's intense. Next up, it's Halloween 2018, taking on Psycho 2. Now, as much of a Halloween guy as I am, I gotta admit, Psycho 2 is the better movie, easily. I mean, like I said, the suspense is even better than the original, in my opinion. I'm not saying overall that it's a better movie, but I feel like the suspense is better. It definitely keeps you guessing throughout the whole movie, and that's what's so great about it. It keeps you on the edge of your seat. You can cut the tension with a knife, pun intended. Next up, we got Nightmare on Elm Street 3 taking on Friday the 13th, the original from 1980. Ooh, whoa. Like I said, Elm Street 3 is so beloved by fans. Everybody loves it. I don't know anybody that does not like A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3. I don't think that's possible. But Friday the 13th, 1980 wins that round. Yes, that might be a big upset for a lot of people. And next up, we have Friday the 13th Part 2 taking on Psycho 2. Two of the best Part 2s going at it. Now, that's an absolute barn burner for me because I love both of these movies. Yes, hold them in very high regard. For me, with the Friday the 13th franchise, it's all about the first two films are easily the best for me, personally. But it's going to be Friday the 13th Part 2 from 1981 getting the win on that round. So, look what we have here in the next round. Friday the 13th from 1980 taking on Friday the 13th Part 2. Look at this. Jason versus Jason. So, wow. But, like I said, I hold the original Friday the 13th in very high regard. I think it's an absolute classic. To me, this is the film that just blew the slasher genre wide open. I mean, it just opened the floodgates for slasher movies, and there'd be so many great slasher movies we probably wouldn't have because of Friday the 13th, And like I said, the atmosphere in this movie is just fantastic. I think it's scary, it's intense. I love the whole whodunit feel, the mystery of the killer, and that great final act, when we finally do figure out who the killer is. And I love the performance, one of my favorite performances in horror history, Betsy Palmer, without a doubt. So Friday the 13th wins the Freddy bracket. Thank you for joining me, Sean Patrick Urshan, in the Horror Corner. Tune in and stay scared.